Welcome in. I am Thirdmango, and today we have Jane Remover, their 2025 album, Revengeseekerz. Let's get into it. So, this is my first time listening to Jane Remover. Overall, I'm still sort of new to hyperpop. I have a history in sort of deconstruction, freeform jazz, Medeski, Martin, and Wood. I'm really into genre deconstruction acts like Ween, super into prog rock acts like the Mars Volta of Montreal, also super into doing sort of a deconstruction pop. So while the current acts of hyperpop I'm still relatively new to, I do have a history in deconstruction. So recently, I was recommended the 2026 album You by Underscores. And right now, that album, number one album of 2026. I'm still just absolutely blown away by it. The way that they do this hyper pop chaos into a musical concept blew me away. So when I learned Jane Remover is essentially a contemporary, immediately I was like, I need to listen to this album. Let's hear this. Let's see how it is. It's interesting. I was surprised. I didn't take to it the same way that I did with Underscores. I had to really sort of understand the album, and I think I came to a conclusion. So let me illustrate it. Both artists use chaos. The thing that Underscores does specifically is they use a lot of crescendos and releases with purposeful chaos. When the chaos hits, it feels earned. It feels purposeful. It still is chaos, but it just had been led to the chaos. Rarely does a song start out with all of the chaos. Jane Remover, however, organizes their chaos around density. Look at the 10th track, Professional Vengeance. This would likely be my song of the album, if not for the last 30 seconds, where there is a sudden bombardment of repetitive sound like 20 hammers hitting a sheet of metal over and over. Jane Remover goes for the wall of sound tactic with their music. It feels directionless on initial listening, but I can't say that that's actually the idea here. It's definitely purposeful. As is a lot of high quality hyperpop, the sounds are abrasive, filled with switches and pivots. You think you're going one way, and suddenly life throws shit at you, and you have to course correct. Underscores builds you to chaos through tension and releases it, whereas Jane Remover pivots to the chaos, gives you large density, and then produces sharp, directional cuts. Because of this jarring nature, I tend to push back. When it hits, whereas when Underscores does it, I lean in. It's not to say that this isn't a successful album. It absolutely is. But for me, because of the jarring nature of it, the album pushes me away. It does make sense, however, that the tracks that I enjoyed, as I listened a second or third time, I began to like it more. Even repeated listens, I was a bit more prepared for the pivots, and yet with every song I like, there's still at least a couple of seconds within each that if I had the choice to eliminate, I would, to make the song more palatable for me. This is why the album is not as glowing a success for me. It does still make me interested in hyperpop as a whole. It just doesn't hit for me. So let's jump into a couple of tracks. The highlights for me are definitely Psycho Boost, Turn Up or Die, Dancing with Your Eyes Closed, and the previously mentioned Professional Vengeance. Because of the insane pivot at the end of Professional Vengeance, Turn Up or Die, starting from about a minute 30 into the song, it becomes one of my favorite songs. The chaos in this one hits really strong at the beginning, but then feels more purposeful and strategic later in the song. But by the end of the song, it's one of my favorites, but the first minute is too much of a barrage. The drop at 3 minutes into Turn Up or Die might be one of my favorite pivots of the whole album. It makes sense, therefore, why Dancing with Your Eyes Closed is the most listened to track on Spotify, as this song is the most accessible, and the chaos is the most purposeful feeling on this track. Psycho Boost, similarly to Dancing, is one of the more accessible tracks on the album. Turn Up or Die might be my favorite song by the end of the track, but the first 30 seconds may stop me from repeated listens. One track I do also want to note is Dark Knight Castle. This is the track where it strips away the chaos. It becomes an interesting exploration. It starts to get vulnerable. This is the most glaring pivot that when followed up with the line, "I feel like my head's splitting," it's so jarring because it's lulling you into this false sense of security and then it hits you like a brick. It shows the intentional pivots and it completely takes me out of the music. I get it, but I don't like it. I mentioned some other artists at the beginning, and Jane Remover reminds me the most of Montreal because I have similar feelings towards their music. Almost every song by Of Montreal that I enjoy, I wish I could take a sound out or two to really make it hit strongly for me. So overall, this is a 3.5 for me. I recognize the technical pivots and the chaos-driven nature, but as my ratings are largely more based on my personal enjoyment, I just can't rate this higher than 3.5 because of how many absolute misses there are. So what do you think? Was that a little too jarring, a little too scary? What do you think of Jane Remover? Am I completely off base? Or am I, I think that I have an understanding of how the chaos is working here. What are your favorite tracks on the album? And what other artists should I be getting into of hyperpop? Thank you for coming. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.